In this video, I'm about to show you 10 custard brands in Australia you should never buy and 5 better ones you should actually be using. Starting with number 10. Number 10. Cottee's Instant Custard Powder. Right, let's kick things off with a brand that's been sitting in Australian pantries for decades, and not for good reasons. Cottee's Instant Custard Powder. Now look, I get the nostalgia. A lot of us grew up with that yellow tin on the shelf. But here's the thing, when you actually flip that tin around and read what's inside, the picture changes pretty fast. Cottee's Instant Custard Powder leans heavily on modified starch, artificial vanilla flavouring, and tartrazine, which is colour 102. Now tartrazine is a synthetic yellow dye that's been flagged by the European Food Safety Authority for links to hyperactivity in children. And yet here it is, still sitting comfortably in an Australian product that families pour over their kids' desserts every single weekend. The company keeps using it because it's cheap, full stop. Real vanilla, real egg. That costs money, and these big operations would rather pad the margin than give you something honest. And the texture when you make it up? It's gluey. That's not custard, that's wallpaper paste with a yellow tint. Proper custard has a silkiness that comes from egg yolk and dairy fat. What you're getting here is thickened with cornstarch and coloured with a dye that several countries have already moved to restrict. Australia deserves better than this. Number 9. Home brand, Woolworths Essentials Custard. Here's where it gets frustrating. Woolworths Essentials Custard is positioned as the affordable choice, the sensible pick for people watching the dollar. And yeah, when you're on a pension or a fixed income, that price tag is hard to ignore. I understand that completely. But what they don't tell you is what they traded away to get that price down. Woolworths Essentials Custard uses skim milk as its base, not full cream. That alone strips out the richness that makes custard worth eating. They then add vegetable gum, specifically carrageenan, listed as thickener 407 to simulate the body you'd normally get from proper fat content. Carrageenan has been the subject of ongoing research questioning its effect on gut lining and inflammation. And the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified degraded carrageenan as a possible carcinogen back in the 1990s. The undegraded form used in food is still considered safe officially. But consumer advocacy groups in Australia have been pushing for more transparency on this ingredient for years. And they'll charge you what? $1.50 for this? Sure, but you're basically paying for thickened skim milk with synthetic stabilisers. That's not a bargain. That's a compromise dressed up as one. Number 8. Aldi Farmdale Custard. Aldi is popular for a reason. And look, I'll give credit where it's due, sometimes they nail it. But Farmdale Custard isn't one of those times. I picked up a tub recently and the first thing I noticed was that vanilla flavoured on the label. Not vanilla, vanilla flavoured. That's the food industry's polite way of saying there's no real vanilla in there. What you're getting is ethyl vanillin, a synthetic compound derived from petrochemicals or wood pulp byproducts, used because it's dramatically cheaper than actual vanilla extract or vanilla bean. Farmdale also uses a blend of thickeners, thickener 1422 and thickener 412. Both modified starches that help maintain shelf stability, but they contribute to that odd, slightly rubbery texture you get when the custard cools down. The milk solids content is on the lower end too, which means less actual dairy doing the work and more filler ingredients picking up the slack. Aldi does a lot of things well, custard just isn't one of them. And when the big guys are cutting corners this aggressively on something as simple as custard, you've got to ask yourself, what else are they skimping on? Number 7. Pam's Custard IGA. Metcash Pam's is one of those brands that slips under the radar because IGA has this reputation for being the community-friendly alternative to the big 2 supermarkets. And fair enough, on some products that holds up. But Pam's Custard is where that goodwill runs dry. Pam's ready-made custard contains a cocktail of stabilisers, thickener 407, thickener 1442, and thickener 415, which is xanthan gum. That's 3 separate gum-based stabilisers in a single custard product. Now, xanthan gum on its own isn't the villain of the story, but when you're stacking it with carrageenan and modified starch in the same formulation, it tells you something very clearly. There isn't enough actual dairy in this product to hold itself together naturally. They need all 3 of those agents working simultaneously just to make it look like custard. The result is a texture that feels almost artificially smooth, almost like you're eating something that was engineered in a lab, rather than made in a kitchen, because essentially it was. And at the end of the day, Metcash, the company behind Pam's, is a $6.5 billion operation in Australia. They are not cutting corners because they have to. They're cutting corners because they can, and because most people never flip the tub around and read the label. Well, now you know. Number 6. Nestlé Dolcello Custard Powder. Alright, Nestlé. I don't think anyone is surprised to see this name here. Nestlé is one of the most complained about food corporations in the world, and their Dolcello custard powder, which gets pushed into a lot of institutional catering, aged care facilities, and food service operations across Australia, is a textbook example of prioritising cost efficiency over anything resembling quality. Dolcello is a catering-grade product, and it shows. It relies on skimmed milk powder, vegetable fat powder, meaning hydrogenated palm oil derivatives, and artificial flavouring. Hydrogenated fats are associated with elevated LDL cholesterol and have been progressively restricted by food authorities in multiple countries. The US Food and Drug Administration moved to phase them out of the American food supply in 2015 because of their demonstrated cardiovascular risk. Australia has been slower to act on this, and the people most likely eating Dolcello-made custard? Elderly Australians in aged care. The very demographic that has the most to lose from a diet high in trans fat adjacent ingredients. That is not an accident of the market. That is a corporation finding the path of least resistance and following it straight to the bottom of the barrel. Number 5. Creative Gourmet Frozen Custard. Creative Gourmet markets itself as a premium frozen dessert brand. And for their fruit products, you could argue they have a case. But the frozen custard? That word premium disappears very quickly when you look at what's actually in the tub. Creative Gourmet Frozen Custard contains glucose syrup as its second ingredient ahead of cream, ahead of egg. Glucose syrup is a highly refined sweetener derived from starch that spikes blood sugar faster than regular table sugar because of how rapidly it's absorbed. It's used extensively in frozen desserts because it lowers the freezing point of the product, which keeps it soft straight out of the freezer. That's the practical reason. The other reason is that it's cheaper than quality dairy fat, and it masks thin flavour with sweetness. And I'll be honest, the custard flavour itself is flat. There is none of that rounded, eggy warmth you associate with a proper custard. It's sweet and cold and not much else. For a product sitting in the premium freezer section with a price tag to match, that is a genuine rip-off. You're paying for the packaging more than what's inside it. Number 4. Black and Gold. Custard Black and Gold has built its entire identity around being the cheapest option on the shelf, and at least they're upfront about that. But cheap and worth buying are two very different things, and Black and Gold custard sits firmly on the wrong side of that line. The ingredient list reads like a chemistry lesson. Modified starch, vegetable gum, artificial vanilla flavouring, and colour 160A, which is beta-carotene, used to give the product that yellow custard colour. Real custard gets its colour from egg yolk. When you're using a colouring agent to simulate that, it means the egg content is negligible at best, non-existent at worst. And the flavour bears that out completely. It's sweet, vaguely vanilla adjacent, and entirely one-dimensional. This product is manufactured for one purpose: to hit a price point. That's it. There is no attempt at quality, no pretense of it. And look, for some households that is a genuine necessity, and I'm not here to judge that, but go in with your eyes open. You are buying a thickened, coloured, artificially flavoured liquid that has had the actual custard-making ingredients engineered out of it. That's Black and Gold custard. Number 3. Paul's Custard Lactulus Australia. Now this one stings a bit, because Paul's has a strong brand heritage in Australia and a lot of people genuinely trust them. Paul's has been part of Australian dairy for over 100 years, but since Lactalis, the French multinational, took over the brand, the custard has quietly gone downhill in ways that don't make it onto press releases. Paul's Custard today uses a formulation that relies on skim milk concentrate rather than full cream milk. They supplement the fat content back in using separate cream additions, which sounds fine in theory, but the ratio matters enormously in custard. The result is a product that's thinner on the palate than it should be. The egg content, while present, is low enough that the product needs thickener 1442 to achieve stability. Lactalis is the world's largest dairy company by revenue, pulling in over 28 billion euros a year globally. And yet the custard they're selling under one of Australia's most trusted dairy names uses skimmed-down ingredients and synthetic thickeners to hold it together. That's not a supply chain problem. That's a corporate decision made in boardrooms, far removed from any Australian dairy farm. And it's one that the loyal Paul's customer base is quietly paying the price for. Number 2. Edgell Custard. Edgell is primarily known for its canned vegetables, which says quite a lot about what their custard is going to be like. Edgell custard is a shelf-stable canned product, and that right there is the first red flag. Real custard, made properly, doesn't live comfortably in a can on a supermarket shelf for 18 months without some significant chemical assistance. To achieve that shelf stability, Edgell uses a combination of thickener 1442, thickener 407, sodium phosphate as an emulsifier, and artificial vanilla flavouring. Sodium phosphate is used in processed foods to maintain pH balance and prevent separation, and while it's considered safe at normal dietary levels, research published in journals including the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology has flagged excessive phosphate additive consumption as a concern for kidney function, particularly in older adults. And again, who's most likely to grab a can of Edgell custard off the shelf? Older Australians looking for convenience and affordability. The very group that deserves a company being straight with them about what they're consuming. Edgell's custard is a product engineered for shelf life, not for your health and not for flavour. Leave it on the shelf where it belongs. Number 1. Dairy Farmers Custard. This one genuinely frustrates me. Because of all the names on this list, Dairy Farmers is the one that carries the most trust. The branding, the name, the implied promise of a product that comes from Australian farmers doing things the right way. And for years, that reputation was deserved. But Dairy Farmers is now owned by Lion, which in turn is owned by Kirin, a Japanese beverage conglomerate. And the custard reflects that corporate ownership shift in every measurable way. Dairy Farmers Custard today uses a formulation built around skim milk, modified starch, vegetable gum, and this is the part that gets me only 3% egg. 3%. Custard is, by definition, an egg and dairy emulsion. 3% egg content is barely a gesture toward the thing it's supposed to be. For comparison, a homemade custard recipe typically uses between 15 and 25% egg by volume. They compensate for the lack of egg structure with a triple thickener system, thickener 1442, thickener 407, and thickener 415 working together. The result tastes faintly of egg, heavily of vanilla flavouring, and slides off the spoon with none of the silky weight that real custard delivers. For a product that puts the word dairy in its brand name and implies a connection to Australian farming, this is a deeply misleading product, and because people trust that name, they don't question it. Now you have a reason to. Alright, now that we've covered the ones to leave on the shelf, let's talk about the ones worth your money. And yes, they do exist. There are still brands out there doing custard properly, using real ingredients, real dairy, and treating the customer like someone worth being honest with. Starting with number 5. Nippy's Custard. Nippy's is a South Australian brand that most people outside South Australia have never heard of, and that is genuinely a shame, because this is one of the most honest custard products on the Australian market. Nippy's keeps their ingredient list refreshingly short. Full cream milk, cream, sugar, egg yolk, corn flour, and natural vanilla. That's it. No carrageenan, no xanthan gum, no artificial colouring, no synthetic vanilla compounds. Just the actual ingredients custard is supposed to be made from. The egg yolk content is high enough that the custard sets with a natural richness you can actually taste. And because it's built on full cream milk and real cream, rather than skim milk concentrate and vegetable fat, the flavour has that depth that you remember from a proper homemade custard. Nippy's has been family-owned and operated since 1934 inches Moorook, South Australia, and you can genuinely taste the difference that an ownership structure makes when a family's name is on the product. I'd go out of my way to find this one. Number 4. Meredith Dairy Custard. Meredith Dairy out of Victoria has built its reputation on quality dairy products. Their goat's milk, yogurt, and sheep's milk products are well regarded, and their custard carries that same philosophy forward. Meredith Dairy Custard uses full cream cow's milk sourced from their Victorian operations, combined with free-range egg yolk and natural vanilla bean extract. Vanilla bean extract, not flavouring, not ethyl vanillin, actual vanilla bean. That distinction matters more than people realise. Vanilla bean extract contains hundreds of naturally occurring flavour compounds that synthetic vanilla simply cannot replicate. It's warmer, more complex, and it rounds out the custard in a way that synthetic vanilla never does. Meredith Dairy's custard is also free from carrageenan and modified starch, relying on egg yolk, protein, and the natural fat structure of high-quality dairy to achieve its consistency. This is a premium product at a premium price, and in this case, every cent of that premium is justified. Number 3. Mullaney Dairies. Custard Mullaney Dairies out of the Sunshine Coast hinterland in Queensland is the kind of operation that the big corporations cannot compete with on quality, no matter how much money they throw at the problem. Mullaney sources their milk from a closed cooperative of farms in the Mullaney region, which means full traceability from paddock to package, something you will never get from a Lactalis or a Kirin-owned brand. Their custard uses full cream milk, egg, cream, and natural vanilla flavouring, and critically, their milk is not ultra-heat treated in the way most large-scale custard producers process their dairy. UHT treatment extends shelf life, but also strips out subtle flavour compounds and alters the protein structure of milk. Mullaney's shorter supply chain means their dairy goes from farm to processing without the need for aggressive heat treatment, and the custard flavour reflects that. It's clean, it's genuine, and it tastes like something a person made, rather than something a factory optimised. Finding it outside Queensland takes effort, but it's worth making. Number 2. Gippsland Dairy Custard. Gippsland Dairy has been producing honest dairy products from Victoria's Gippsland region for years. And their custard is one of the most consistently well-reviewed products in the Australian dairy aisle. Gippsland Dairy Custard is made with full cream milk and cream from Gippsland farms, combined with free-range egg yolk, sugar, and natural vanilla flavouring. The ingredient list is clean and transparent. What sets Gippsland apart is the egg yolk ratio. Their custard has a notably higher egg content than anything in the budget or mid-range market, and that translates directly into a flavour profile that's genuinely eggy and rich in a way that satisfies completely. Independent taste tests published in Australian food media have placed Gippsland Dairy consistently in the top tier of supermarket custards. It's available at major supermarkets nationally, which means you don't have to go hunting for it. It's right there in the fridge section, and now you know to reach for it. Number 1. Bulla Creamy Classics Custard, and here we are, the best custard brand in Australia that you can actually find reliably across the country. Bulla. Bulla has been Australian-owned and family-operated since 1910, and their custard is one of the clearest examples of a large-scale brand that has refused to compromise on the fundamentals. Bulla Creamy Classics Custard uses full cream milk, cream, egg yolk with an egg content significantly above the industry average for commercial custard sugar, corn flour, and natural vanilla. No carrageenan, no modified phosphate starch. No synthetic colour, no artificial vanilla compound. Bulla has publicly committed to removing artificial colours and flavours from their product range, and their custard reflects that commitment in a way you can verify just by reading the label. The texture is genuinely exceptional for a commercially produced custard, silky, pourable at room temperature, and it sets to a gentle, spoonable consistency when chilled without the rubbery quality you get from gum-heavy alternatives. Bulla is available in every major supermarket in Australia, which means there is genuinely no excuse to be reaching for the synthetic stuff when this is sitting right next to it. This is the one. Family-owned, honest ingredients, and it tastes exactly like custard is supposed to taste.